Derek bounced up on his toes and tossed the lemon piece he'd been working on over with the trash can. It landed inside perfectly. But I was on the other side of the counter back then, and now I'm here in the kitchen with you. That caught your ear, and you lifted one of your eyebrows. You'd never heard the details of what happened when Derek and Cove met for the first time. You knew their parents started working together, and one day Derek was just there in the neighborhood hanging out with Cove, but that was it. Derek could recognize an intrigued audience when he saw one and did what he knew how to do, tell the rest of the story. Mr. Holden invited my dad over for a meal at his house after their partnership was official. He talked about Cove before when him and my dad were getting to know each other. You can't get away from hearing about Mr. Holden's top-notch son if you spend any time with him. Off to the side, Cove mumbled with embarrassment over what he clearly thought was an unnecessary addition. Derek laughed the minor interruption off and went on. So my dad suggested that I come too, since we were the same age. Mr. Holden was apparently really into the idea. I had no idea what to expect from something like that, but I wanted to go to a sort of business dinner with my dad. It felt pretty cool to be invited, and then I went. Whatever I was imagining before I got there, Mr. Holden definitely wasn't it. I had thought my dad was casual for a professional business person, but Cove's dad takes the cake. A warmth came to Cove's expression, not the red-hot heat of fluster from before, but a gentleness that was based in his honest love for his parents. A lot of people don't expect Dad to be how he is. What did you think about me when you first met me? You know? Derek mindlessly scratched his damp hand against the back of his head. A stray lemon seed clung to one of his spikes of his hair. You didn't want to cut the two off, so the little bit went unmentioned.
No way!
Honestly, when I spotted you in the back of the kitchen, I thought Mr. Holden had another older kid he was hiding, 'cause there was no way that guy was 13. You were so tall and fit, and you just stared at people. You seemed like a tough upper grade teen who'd never talk to somebody like me. You snickered under your breath. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was describing Elizabeth. Having that description be assigned to Cove Holden, of all people, was hilarious. Cove was equally startled by Derek's choice of words. His eyes opened wide in amusement. You thought I was tough? Yeah, I did. But thought is definitely the right word for that. That instantly put Cove into a pouty mood. He pressed both of his palms against the marble countertop, not bothering to squeeze another lemon. Cove didn't want to play anymore. Derek leaned his shoulder against Cove's side affectionately. He reached past him to the lemon slice Cove wasn't using and started to juice it himself. Sorry, there was nothing wrong with being a softie. I like that about you. Bringing Derek's statement to life, Cove visibly relaxed his stance. The tone of his voice was equally delicate. I guess it's not bad. It's great, Cove. Cole took a new piece of fruit and rejoined the lemonade making efforts. Derek pinched an eye shut from the tension of crushing a chunk in his fist. He hesitantly continued the topic. So, what about me? When you first met me, what kind of expression did you get? With much less force, Cove used both hands to work on his single lemon. He answered the question while staring off into space. That was likely the same expression Derek had been the moment they'd met. The face he'd read as intimidating rather than easily distracted. I thought he probably likes sports. All three of you shook from laughter, bumping against each other with your closeness like a bunch of grapes on a vine rustling in the wind.
I get it.
Okay. Faye, your turn. What did you think about me when you met me? When we met? Oh, your mind drifted back to a few months ago before summer vacation had begun. You'd stepped out of your house late in the afternoon and Cole was sitting on the curb with someone else, someone you'd never seen in your life, not even in passing at school. A green-eyed boy with a football jersey who was joking around lightheartedly with your longtime neighborhood. You couldn't even guess where he had appeared from. It was like Cove had conjured up a friend through magic. You had stood there staring for a second, but a newcomer noticed your presence quickly. He jumped right to his feet, jogged across the street, and stuck out his hand for you to shake. With the wide grin that you were so familiar with now, he introduced himself to you for the first time as Derek. I thought you were cute. Really? Thanks. Can I ask what you thought about me? Derek's gaze shifted from the picture in front of him to settle on you instead. There was a focus in his eyes. It made you hold your breath from anticipation. I thought you were cute too. Wow, it was kind of flattering to know you'd made such a good first impression on Derek. Thank you for telling me. It's no problem. By the way, you have a lemon seed in your hair. Oh. Derek racked his hands through his light brown strands blindly. Unfortunately, he focused on the top and sides, so he never hit the right spot. One of your hands covered the laughter coming out of your mouth, and you used the other to point out the target on the back of his head. Finally, he was able to brush the seed onto the floor. He bent down to pick it up and dropped it to the side of the counter. Thanks, Faye. You're welcome. We would add a little of the lemon zest too. I'll do that. Derek fumbled to move the topic to something else. His darkening cheeks were probably the reason why. Do you have a grater or peeler? Yeah. Cove gestured to the same jar the knife had come from. Derek dug through it until he successfully retrieved a multi-textured grater. He took his stuff to the opposite side of the kitchen to not get in the way and worked with his back to you and Cove. Cove tilted his head thoughtfully. He was inspired by Derek's work ethic. If it's gonna be fancy lemonade with zest, then we should do that thing where you put whole slices in too. I can cut a few of the leftover lemons. Cool. Faye, can you pour the water and sugar in the pitcher so it can start to dissolve? Yep. You started by filling up the sparkly jug with chilled filtered water from the fridge, and you remembered to put ice in the drink too. The diluted lemon juice sloshed around and threatened to spill over as you piled in the ice. You left some space for Cove's lemon slices. Finally, you took hold of the hefty bag of white sugar and pulled it close to the counter's ledge. Stray grains of sugar that coated the bag came to stick against your still damp fingers instead. You felt like you were building a sandcastle at the beach. You added a full cup of sugar. You searched around the kitchen until you found a colorful ceramic mixing spoon. You dunked it into the pitcher and carefully stirred. A quiet smile grew on your face as you watched the bits of sugar swirl around in the pale yellow drink. At this point, the separate ingredients had truly come together to be lemonade. Around and around you turned the spoon. It was almost hypnotic the way the juice swirled inside the pitcher. Your trance was broken by a sharp hiss at your side. You dropped the spoon, losing it in the depths of lemonade, and snatched your head towards Cove. He was holding his left hand up to his face. A thick bubble of dark red had slipped down from one of his fingers and left a streak over his palm. Oh, ouch. You okay? Cove plainly shrugged. It's nothing. Without even thinking about it, Cove reached his hand down to wipe the mess on his pants. Luckily for his trousers, Derek flipped around at the commotion. His tense, worried face took in the scene, and a disbelieving shout startled Cove into freezing. Don't do that. Cove stared incredulously from the corner of his eyes, with an arm awkwardly sticking out from his side. His sudden pause in the strange position reminded you of the red light, green light game you played at your elementary school, except there was no green and only red in Cove's version. I'm fine. No way. You gave a firm nod in agreement. Cove needed to take care of himself. Derek stretched his arms high to grasp the taller teen by the shoulders. He stepped backwards, getting Cove to move with him. We're gonna clean that off for real. Cove muttered an averted whine as he stumbled along with Derek, who was reversing out of the kitchen. Faye, do you mind cleaning up the cutting board? No, I'll take care of it. You gathered the knife onto the cutting board and brought it over to the trash. The lemon slices couldn't be used in a drink after that. You used the knife to scrape them off and into the bag. Then you got to rinsing the board and knife in the sink with soap and hot water. You switched between staring down at the sluts and checking over the counter for the boys. You were careful not to accidentally get a cut of your own, but it was hard not to wonder what was going on down the hill. By the time you'd finished washing up, Cove and Derek re-emerged in the living room, and an unassuming brown bandage was wrapped around the cut on Cove's finger.
It's okay.
It's okay, it wasn't deep. We washed it off, got it clean, put a bandage on it, good as new. Derek marched with confidence right back into the kitchen. Cove hesitated in the living room. He waved apologetically. Hey, you're really okay? I definitely am. I just nicked myself when a lemon slipped. The juice stinging me was way worse than the cut itself. That's a relief. Thanks for helping, Derek. Thank you, too. It's cleaner in here. He held his hand up to you for a high five. It had been washed clean of the lemon juice that coated before. You slapped his hand. You swung your palm forward and clapped Derek back. He pumped his arms enthusiastically as a follow-up. Cove walked over to join the two of you, smiling ruefully. Thanks for caring. Always, man. Now what? Well, he took a second to look between you and Cove as he puzzled out a next step, and then he beamed. Let's try our lemonade. It doesn't need the slices or the zest. Derek gave an exaggerated wave across the front of his chest, blowing the whole thing off. Cove eagerly supported the sentiment. He was more than ready to put the prior incident behind him.
You're right.
Yeah, lemonade doesn't need to be fancy. It's lemonade. Derek nodded twice as he strained it to lift the nearly full pitcher. He had to balance on his tiptoes to pour the juice into the set of 3 glasses that had been put out earlier. If Derek noticed there was a spoon clattering around in there, he pretended that he didn't. Thank you. At the same time, Cove and Derek tipped their cups and took full gulps of the drink. They savored the taste, and you watched as their reaction formed. Cove smiled contentedly, while Derek cheered with enthusiasm. It's good. Derek gave a thumbs up to that.
Good job, team.
It's a perfect cup of lemonade. Good work, team. You gladly joined them in taking a sip, enjoying every drop of your hard work. It was absolutely refreshing. Cove chugged the rest of his drink, then placed the empty cup down firmly. His enthusiasm was continuing to rise. Let's fill the water balloons. Slowly, cautiously, Derek questioned Cove's plan. He didn't want to ruin things, but expressing concern was more important.
Are you sure?
Will you really be alright in the water balloon fight with your finger and stuff? Cove remained relaxed in the face of Derek's worry. He wasn't going to bring the mood down after the commotion he caused earlier. He responded to the inquiry by slickly pulling out the big gun. Your neighbor smirked as he held up his left arm over his chest, showing the full length of the jagged, pale scar that marked him. I've had worse. Derek's eyes widened, and his mouth was stuck hanging open. You'd seen Derek in a swimsuit. He didn't have a single scratch on his skin, or if he did, it was tiny enough to be covered by nothing more than neon shorts. He could only imagine what Cove had gone through to get an injury with such a lasting impact. So, if Cove Holden said he could manage a cut, he could manage that cut.
Whoa.
Wow, you're pretty tough after all. The compliment had Cove preening. His caressed his trusty scar and giggled childishly. Yeah, I think it'll be okay. Alright, let's do it. Nothing else needed to be said. The three of you bustled open the baggie of water balloons, pushed the tools of your lemonade production aside, and got to work on another summer group project. You stretched the open end of the water balloon over of the faucet. The plastic fit snugly around the silver spout. You still kept your hands on it to make certain the balloon didn't pop off and shoot a stream into your face like a busted water fountain. Derek flipped the handle up for you, and the first saggy balloon rapidly expanded. Out of the bag, the balloon was a dark emerald color, but in only a few seconds, the bloated sack of water had stretched so thin the green had become almost translucent. It was as pale as Cove's hair. Before it was pushed beyond its limits, Derek turned the faucet off again. You carefully pinched the stranded top of your perfectly plump toy and then harvested it off the silver vine. Cove reached out for it as he intended to tie the balloons while you and Derek continued filling. Derek looked between the balloons and Cove's hand and called a timeout. He'd been a little over-eager to get involved and realized in that moment that their team arrangement wasn't the most efficient. He requested to switch position with Cove. Cove rolled his eyes but didn't argue. His bandage could easily be yanked right off by the taut loops of plastic that formed around the fingers while tying them. Your optimized party got back into action, with you hooking balloons into place, Cove handling water distribution, and Derek sealing the deal with a knot. Soon you had a couple dozen shiny water balloons overflowing in the sink basin. Cove pushed off from the counter silently. He disappeared from the kitchen and left you and Derek wondering. He went down the hall into his bedroom. He was only gone for a minute before stepping back into the hall with a pure white, hole-speckled laundry basket. The point of that was obvious, but his choice of bin did get a bit of ribbing from Derek. Did you dump your clothes on the floor for that? Yeah, they were already dirty. Oh. Derek blinked. He hadn't expected that to be true or for Cove to be so straightforward about it. You snickered at the exchange, still cautiously leaning against the sink. When Cove dropped the very newly empty laundry basket on the tile, you cradled a few water balloons in your arms and placed them inside. Cove and Derek joined in with the transfer. Eventually, every water balloon has safely made it into the basket. Nice work! Derek and Cove each took one side and lifted, while you helped steer by grabbing the back end. Moving as one, the three of you shuffled out of the kitchen and through the living room to take your treasure chest of jiggly jewels into the neighborhood. The door was opened, the drop from the curb to the street was overcome, and you successfully placed the laundry basket in the center of the empty road. Well, we're here. We are here. Derek slowly curled and uncurled his fist. Cove didn't take his eyes off you or Derek. No one made a move for the pile. You broke the pause and grabbed a weapon. Cove lashed out like a snake at your move and got his hand around a balloon of his own before you could do anything with yours. But Derek wasn't going to be left behind either. He stuck both his hands deep into the mass and came out with two balloons. In quick succession, Derek launched one shot at you and the other at Cove. Ah! You felt the impact of a solid object slamming against your chest before it burst into a million pieces and a shock of cold water seeped into the front of your shirt. Cove was left sputtering and with a dark stain at the lower edge of his top. He shook the hit off and chuckled a balloon directly at Derek in return. It exploded against his right shoulder. No one was dry anymore, and no one was safe. The war was on. You threw yours at Derek. It landed true and it added a second dripping blotch on Derek's favorite jersey. We're even, Derek. Yeah, not for long. The three of you elbowed against the others to dig into the pile and restock your supplies. Politely taking turns was out of the question. The water balloon fight was in full force. Derek sprinted up and down the street, making himself into a moving target. He'd only make a mad dash for the center area when he ran out of balloons. Cove had no fear of being an easy mark and stayed right by the laundry basket. Lobbing strike after strike at you and Derek. You chased after Derek. As fast as he was, you stayed hot on his heels. Derek had to duck from shots raining over him thanks to Cove and watch his back on account of you. He darted around, skipping, jumping, and changing course in a mostly vain attempt to avoid the onslaught, though he breathed heavily through a massive grin. After water splashes filled the normally quiet Sunsetburg neighborhood, you were convinced the mean grandparents would jump out and shout about the noise. Luckily, no one interrupted your reverie, and even if someone had, they would have been putting their dryness at risk by confronting your group. Rapidly, the amount of balloons dwindled up until each person only had one left in hand, and the laundry basket had nothing except a little puddle at the bottom with scraps of rubber scattered in it. Arms were held high in the air. taking aim, and eyes shifted from one option to the other. Derek wound his hand further back. Cove and you couldn't take your eyes off him. Your teeth gritted as you tried desperately to calculate where the balloon would fly. Would it be Cove or you? However, Derek chose neither. He launched it straight up in the air. It reached an impressive height. You could barely see the speck of yellow against the vast blue sky, until it inevitably sailed down and smacked against the tarmac. Derek broke into more snickers the exact moment the balloon broke into 1,000 drops of water. He wasn't the only one amused by the stunt. Cove's smile bent and he opened his fingers to let his balloon drop harmlessly to the ground. Cove didn't pick it back up. Instead, he brutally brought his foot against his one weapon and decimated it under his heel. A jovial truce had been formed between the two. You broke it against your own head. If no one was throwing balloons at each other anymore, that didn't mean you had to waste the shot. You positioned the balloon at the center of your forehead and pressed unforgivingly until it popped. Derek and Cove exclaimed in amazement. It was like you'd done that party trick where you crushed a soda can against your head, or as if you were Derek crushing a piece of pie into his own face to entertain his brothers. That was how the grandest battle your neighborhood had likely ever seen came to the end. You were all dripping wet and out of breath, and you couldn't be happier. Derek rubbed his hands together in satisfaction before crouching to the ground to start collecting tiny bits of water balloon debris. Cove strolled around to gather the confetti-like trash on his own accord as well. There didn't have to be a discussion. Derek and Cove had that quality in common, a disaster for later. You appreciated that about both of them and joined in to help pick up the pieces off the ground. You quietly wandered around, filling your fists with rubbery remains as the sun crept behind the condo roofs. Your shadows grew longer in the waning light. You felt the damp cling of your clothes more acutely as the excitement died down. Your team managed to finish cleaning before night had completely fallen. All the trash was dumped into a tall green trash can at the side of Cove's house. With all that remained of the carnage being a few drying watermarks spotting the street, your group had returned to the state you'd originally started in, directionless relaxation. Cove had been perfectly willing to return to his house while still wet and scrounged up fresh glasses of lemonade. Plus, he had your little umbrella tucked under his arm. It was a struggle to balance it all. But Cove took one for the team as someone who actually lived there. You and Derek didn't have to go in and make a mess of the Holden house, though you imagined Cove's dad wouldn't have cared. He passed the drink to you and one to Derek, then used his free hand to flip the laundry basket over. It was less flimsy than it looked because Cove sat on it, and it didn't buckle at all. Derek politely passed on the seat Cove provided. He remained standing while shifting his weight from one foot to the other. You stood around near Derek. That's where you would be the most comfortable. Derek welcomed you to the standing section with a grin. Cove quietly took a sip of his lemonade. Derek circled the top of his glass with the tip of one finger, watching Cove.
Are you alright?
How's your hand? Cove savored another taste of the drink, let out a refreshed sigh, and then answered,
It's okay.
It's still fine. Cool. The ritual of checking on him was complete, and Derek could only chuckle bashfully over his habit. Cole smiled over the rim of his cup. There was comfort in knowing Derek would always care. Before enjoying the rest of the lemonade, Cole remembered to anoint his cup with one of the many tropical umbrellas. Derek and you both got your own from the box. You got to have pretty fancy lemonade after all. The air was warm enough to be comfortable even with your wet clothes. Lemonade, little umbrellas, and good company. That was what days like these were for. It couldn't get much better. Cole agreed contentedly without you even having to say so. Summer really is the best season.
Same.
I think so too. Me 3. Awesome. A gentle expression rested on Derek's face as he spoke softly. It'd be nice if things could be like this all the time, huh? But then Derek lifted his glass and spoke in mock outrage to the world at large. Why can't it always be summer break? Despite it being an obvious joke, Derek's words struck a chord with Cole. His total chill hardened into seriousness. He downed his second glass of lemonade and hopped onto his feet. I'm gonna go check something. You should come, both of you. He considered that a sufficient offer because Cole simply walked back to the front of his house and left the empty glass at the side of the door. Derek's gaze followed his friend and he left it one row. What are you gonna see? You'll see when we get there. You're probably gonna try to talk me out of it, so you don't need to know now.
What?
He almost dropped his cup. Derek twisted his head to track Cole's moves with his saucer-eyed, wide eyes. Or maybe Faye would. This is gonna be trouble. Come on. Still completely confident, Cole strolled up the road. Derek gulped, but not the lemonade. He pointed a panicked glance at you. We should go, alright? Derek hooked his open hand through the side handle of the laundry basket. He jogged on his tiptoes over to Cole's condo. The bin bumped along against the street behind him. He flung it in front of him and left it there in the entry. He placed his half-empty lemonade by Cole's. You were right behind him. You dropped the little umbrellas into the laundry basket and completed the set of glasses by placing yours next to theirs. Let's go. After another light jog, you caught up to Cove. He was going at a leisurely pace and smirked when he saw the two of you in the corner of his vision. Hey. Hi. Together, you, Cove, and Derek left your neighborhood and returned to the main sidewalk that you took to reach the grocery store hours earlier. An exchange of glance between you and Derek was the only interaction you had during the walk. Cove kept his sun-kissed face forward and his mouth shut. Shopping wasn't on your neighbor's mind because that building was passed without an acknowledgement. He was taking you further down the path. Only about a minute later, your progress was halted by a row of strikingly orange traffic cones and strings of droopy "Do Not Cross" banners. Should we go around? No, we're here. Huh? Derek stalled. Cove, however, got onto his knees in front of the blocked off area. His eyes were glinting with intention. I saw this when we were leaving, but people were working on it. The concrete is still wet, and there's no one around now. Yet again, Cove had knocked a gasp out of Derek. You're not gonna mess it up, right? Cove didn't have to say anything to answer. He shared a coy smile, and that was enough.
Oh man.
Oh, Cove, that's really bad. The grin on Derek's face trembled, both from laughter threatening to spill out and the fear of getting in trouble. Why am I not surprised? 'Cause you know me. Cole fearlessly stuck his finger into the muddy, gray concrete. He slowly etched out a series of numbers. When he was done, the corner of the block had 2011 scribbled into it for all to see. He surveyed his work with pride while wiping his dirty finger on the side of his pant leg. You added summer above Cove's 2011. That made more sense to you than just having it be the year.
It's nice.
That's nice. Derek stared hard at the soft, forbidden canvas and slowly crouched down. He paused, bit his lip, then ultimately pressed one finger into the tacky surface to leave a small print. He'd left a sign of his presence there on that day, right along with Cove and you. Relief came to Derek's features once he'd finished. Hopefully it dries before anybody finds out. Yeah. The single word was only a whisper, but it was warm and pure. Thanks for taking us, Cove. You're welcome. Cove dusted his pants off as he stood after a job well done. Derek shot up as well. Newly invigorated, he looked to the sky and squinted at the sun. The day was coming to an end, but no one could say your group had wasted it. It was true for the entire summer. No matter what happened when school started again and when an unknown future arrived, you'd still have all the memories you made together when you had the chance and the things you left behind.